Hello everyone, my name is Marcus and I'm happy to contribute to your training. It's the end of a hot summer day here in Cologne and I'm going to give you a brief input on one-stop shops, specifically in the building sector. And I gave the title Renovating for the Common Good. My name is Marcus, I'm from Climate Alliance and also from the EPAH community of practice, of which I'm going to say later more. It's a life-funded EU project. Yeah, let's dive into one-stop shops and specifically on buildings. But first, more general. What is actually a one-stop shop or a OSS? This, for example, can be a one-stop shop. A supermarket. It's actually really a shop, right? And why is it a one-stop shop? Because it actually brings together everything in one place and hopefully leads to a happy user/customer. But of course, also the one-stop shops you're thinking about and me are probably more from public administration. And there's a famous example from Sao Paulo, the Safe Time Centers, where you can get over 400 document-related services from your ID card to a renewed driver's license. So these are places spread over town, over the big city, where you can go and get your stuff done, so to say, in an easy manner. Although research actually says that it's, in the case of Sao Paulo, most of the time rather 3 stops you need to go and not only 1. But you get the idea, to simplify matters. So I said we're going to focus on buildings. So here's an interlude. Why focus on buildings in these days? I didn't know, but now I knew too, that around 40% of the energy consumed in the EU is used in buildings. And over 1/3 of the energy-related greenhouse gas emissions also come from buildings. So these are huge numbers, and from an ecological point of view already seems to make sense to renovate buildings. And if you look more closely, we also see that the type of energy used is mostly for what I would say like normal stuff, like heating, cooling, hot water, things you need for your everyday life, things that are very much connected to your everyday life quality. But the EU buildings are also kind of old. Most of them are built before 2000. And amongst those, 70% have a poor energy performance. So these are not really energy efficient. And I had to think of a story I was told by my colleague in the UK when a man goes to a doctor and complains about his breathing conditions. And then eventually the doctor said, "You don't need asthma medication, you need a renovation." So the idea is here that you need, that renovation makes sense from an ecological point of view, but also from a social point of view for the well-being of everyone involved. And this is also what we can read in the Energy Performance of Buildings Directive. It has been recently revised in 2024. And here it says, not only is the energy performance improved and it saves energy and reduces the energy bills, but also reduces energy poverty, makes Europe more energy independent, a wink to the Russian-Ukraine war, and it also benefits the health and well-being of citizens by bringing living standards up to the 21st century for everyone. That's the idea, or that's hopefully the opportunity we find here. However, the current deep renovation rates are too low, actually. And when I say deep renovation, it's differentiating different kinds of renovation. Because an ordinary renovation, maybe not ordinary, but a renovation might also be to renovate yourself a swimming pool into your apartment. But when we say deep renovation, we really mean an energetic deep renovation where you end up with higher energy efficiency standards. So eventually you need less energy for heating, cooling, and things like these. So what we ideally want is deep renovation. But the annual renovation rates in Europe are only at 1% per year. There's a belief that at least 2% would be needed to achieve significant change. And the deep renovation rate is really almost minimal. It's 0.2, but it would be great to have 3% actually in order to achieve the 2030 climate and sustainability targets. So, how to do this? Or asked differently, what hinders renovation? And I will put forward one of the main hindrances. Of course, there are also others. And for this, I'm going to use an analogy, which I will tell you later where I got it from. The wedding analogy. So please imagine with me together a young couple. They're in love and they want to marry. However, when they think of the whole marriage process, they start to worry. It seems quite dreadful, huh? They need to find a location. They need to have a caterer, a cake, drinks, DJing. They need to invite many guests, and they need dresses, a ring. They need to manage high expectations, and it's probably very, very costly. I haven't married myself, but I was a best man 3 times, so I kind of have an idea here. So maybe your whole life looks like a wedding planning mode for now, and people get stressed, and maybe they start to think again, maybe, do we really want to marry? So the whole thing starts to look like a fragmented, daunting, resource-consuming experience. While the main protagonists have maybe a real job elsewhere, they have something else to do. For them, it's really a one-time thing, and they don't even intend to become a pro at all of this. I know I'm letting this look like it's a very problematic thing to marry. That's not my intention here, but rather to point out that it's quite stressful to have a marriage going on. So what could be a solution to help them in this situation? They might need a wedding planner, which you can think of as a one-stop shop if you want. That person would integrate different services like the DJ and the caterer, reduce the complexity and the burden for the couple, and act as a trusted bridge between the different stakeholders, and also inform the decision-making and ensuring the quality. Hey, don't take this DJ, he's crap, take the other one, for example. Yeah, and the analogy, of course, to the building sector would be, imagine a homeowner who's faced with this process of renovating a home, having to deal with so many different stakeholders in a very costly and time-consuming, resource-consuming process, and might need the help of a one-stop shop. So let's have a closer look at home renovation. Here's a graphic that gives an idea of the complexity at work. What you see on the left side are major steps of a renovation journey, like the project design, a selection of companies, the renovation work itself, for example. And on top, you see the many actors involved, the architect, to the bank, and to the public authority. And you see on the core activity is in dark red and bigger of the core activity of these actors. So for the homeowner, he or she has to deal with a lot of different actors, and it's quite complex. So can a one-stop shop help here and make the whole thing more attractive by simplifying it? I have to have a spoiler here, and I'm sorry for that. The ideal one-stop shop that would be maybe hand-holding throughout the whole renovation journey hardly exists so far. However, of course, there are different models that do a good job. And Millet and Boyer, they differentiate 3 typical models. So what you can see on the right side is still the same kind of steps. And then you see, instead of these different actors we saw before, you see 3 kind of one-stop shop models. The advice model, rather taking the first part of the journey in helping to make the right decisions. The support model, mostly helping with the actual delivery of the project. And the implementation model, which is happening more or less in the same phases, going a bit further, and rather doing the job for the homeowners or taking care that the job is done. But the modes of how the one-stop shops operate are quite different, and when they, in the journey, when they come into place here. This is not based so much on empirical data. However, Millet and Boyer, they both work for CINEA, taking care of the life grants for one-stop shops. So they have I would say, a good idea of what's going on. but further research needs to be done is for how much we find which model in Europe, for example. But still, it gives maybe an idea of the kind of one-stop shops out there in home renovation. But actually, they propose to call it differently, because one-stop shop, as we saw in the beginning with a supermarket, is used so often, the term, that when it comes to home renovation, they propose something different. They propose to call it integrated home renovation services. And here's a little description why they think one-stop shop is not so suitable, because the term is not yet stabilized and it's used for so many different purposes that it gets a bit wacky. But truth to be told, it's going to be the most popular term probably, and integrated home renovation service is more precise probably. It refers to the integration, to the attempt to span as much as possible of these 10 steps, for example, but even there, many questions remain. But it led to our name. EPAH is called the Community for Integrated Home Renovation Services, but we also use the term one-stop shop. And we're trying to, when we say one-stop shops, we often say one-stop shops for energetic home renovation. Okay, I hope this was helpful. And let's dive into the second part. I'm going to tell you a bit about EPAH, and you can see already the teaser here. Come join us. Come join us. It's a community. And I'm allowed to say hi from the consortium. The initiative is run by 11 partners. Climate Alliance is in the lead, but we have a great number of other partners, including financial expertise and a number of countries covered. Climate Alliance, Federin, and Energy Cities were all, for example, cities or municipal and regional networks. So we're having that perspective very much with us, but there are also energy agencies and other actors here involved. What we found when we started, and we actually just started, is that so far there's a great bottom-up diversity of one-stop shops for energetic home renovation in the EU. You have, of course, the many different contexts of the EU, and you have the varied models and hybrid models. What we just learned before, the advice, the support and implementation model, also different ownership models like public or privately owned or hybrid models. And we even see the emergence of digital one-stop shops. For us, our mission is really to bring this whole movement further. And 2024 sees an interesting unleashment of momentum, a more top-down approach. Because in the revised EPBD, we now find written that member states shall ensure that technical assistance facilities, one-stop shops, are established. Sorry, technical assistance facilities are available by establishing at least one one-stop shop per 80,000 inhabitants per region, and in areas where the average age of the building stock is above the natural average, where there are district renovation programs, and within reach of 90 minutes for everyone. So this probably means that we got to see many one-stop shops in the future. The guidelines for how to implement this will probably come next year, and the different member states will interpret it differently, of course. But generally, this move can be seen or was interpreted as more recognition, better integration, and a stronger role for one-stop shops in the future. So this is exciting times. And what we offer now is a community of practice to forward the integration of energetic home renovation services together. We have two kinds of free membership, they're all free. Either you are kind of a provider, so you are a one-stop shop, or you're about to come up with a one-stop shop, or you're part of the wider ecosystem supporting the integration. And as you can see, as there is so much diversity in the EU, we're also kind of supporting the integration of the different kind of one-stop shops and trying to bring forward with a united voice and lobby for change that supports eventually the end user. So we started really recently, although the project started in September, or the initiative, our official kickoff was only last month in June. Here you can see a funny picture from Brussels. It was a magnificent event. And what we offer is a number of sub-platforms, national and transnational platforms, to cater for the diversity. So the French, for example, which is very progressive in one-stop shops, have their own sub-platform where they can speak in French, but also deal with the specific French legislation and context. Same with the Irish, Hungarian, Spanish, the Baltic, the 3 countries, and Italians. But we hope to see more communities upcoming, more platforms upcoming. For example, maybe Belgium, let's see. So we have annual summits. We also have a community intranet, only one intranet where everyone can come together. As we just started, members are popping up and one by one coming. And you also can see upcoming advocacy work, trainings, and mentoring. All this is funded by the LIFE funding line by Cinea. And yeah, we're really looking forward into the future. And you're very welcome to join us or check out the community. For example, there's an upcoming webinar on September 10 in the transnational community. Have a look at our website or feel free to approach us anytime. Part 3. Shortly, the outlook on energy poverty. You haven't heard me speaking about energy poverty yet so much, and I personally treat it rather as an upcoming focus. Here's a reminder of what the benefits of one-stop shops are. And this is from 2021, and you read many things that I have said or not said yet. They can accelerate building refurbishments. They can facilitate interested but not yet committed energy users. They can facilitate access as a trusted broker to financing and many other things. And the very last line you read, sometimes they can reach out to vulnerable populations such as tenants of social houses and contribute to tackle energy poverty. Sometimes. And truth be told, so far there are not so many one-stop shops that really full-on tackle this topic, let's say. Opengela in the Basque country, for example, and some others, Toulouse. And here's an example from Setúbal in Portugal. Then the Transition Point, which was a temporary and mobile one-stop shop, a citizen support space of which you're going to hear more in your 3rd training, as far as I'm informed. But things are going to change. The revised Energy Performance of Buildings Directive, which I mentioned earlier, of 2024, and this is just one snippet here, there's more, says not only shall one-stop shops provide independent advice on the energy performance and may accompany integrated district renovation programs, they also shall offer dedicated services for vulnerable households, people affected by energy poverty, and people in low-income households. So this is written into the definition of these kind of one-stop shops. In renovation, the renovation wave strategy is seen as an opportunity. It should leave no one behind and be seized as an opportunity to improve the situation of vulnerable households, and a fair transition towards climate neutrality should be ensured. Of course, this is not easy. For example, while residents, vulnerable residents, let's say, will profit in the built environment, will profit from a renovation, the question remains, for example, who pays for it eventually, or will the rent raise, or some of these points, for example. So how to best ensure this? But what's written here into the program is really that one-stop shops in the future, as an inherent part of what they do, they should tackle this. And there are some examples out there, for example, like the Transition Point, like Opengela and some others. And we are actually, as EU peers, as the community of practice, we are embracing the topic. We haven't done so much so far because we're only 1 month old, but we're going to put it on our agenda and provide a forum to have really a community of practice exchange on this. So some of the questions that could also be further explored is financing models of one-stop shops, and maybe there's the next step, having a no-stop shop even. This is an idea where you rather, until you not wait until someone comes to you, to the one-stop shop, but to proactively reach out, maybe because you have an idea who needs it most. And yeah, as I said before, how to secure affordable rent after renovation might be another point. Oh, sorry, this slide is twice apparently. Here's one more question from this one before. How can residents engage homeowners? Let's say the residents want renovation, but the homeowner not. So how can that best be tackled? So there are many, many open questions. I just want to give you a brief idea. And thank you very much for your attention. I hope there was something valuable for you in there. Please feel free to reach out. We're very happy to have you in the community or to answer any question that might be of help for you. All the best, and thank you very much for having me here. Bye-bye.